Balance is something that we often hear about when we are consciously looking to really master self-fulfillment and coming into the self-realization as to who you are. Now, what does that really mean, though? What are we balancing when we think about balance? Sometimes we compare it to outside situations, balancing work and pleasure. But really, when we talk about balance from the spiritual or metaphysical standpoint, we're talking about balancing consciousness and ego. Now, there's more to explain in that, because what does that mean exactly? How do we balance consciousness and balance our ego? You see, consciousness is the thing that is the purest aspect of who we are. Whereas ego, though it is very necessary in this physical world, it is the false self, the part of us that, though is practical in this physical world, it isn't truly who we are. So how do we come into understanding balance between those two things in order for us to actually take this walk, this spiritual walk towards self-fulfillment and happiness and joy without there being a conflict of these two things? Because most times the journey consists of conflict. It consists of your consciousness telling you one thing, whereas your ego is telling you something completely opposite. And you're going back and forth between the two things, essentially not feeling like you're getting anywhere. And so what I want to explain to you now is how to actually balance those two things in a way that actually lends you to moving forward practically and feeling the fulfillment of the journey. So let's think about it. Consciousness is your true self. Ego is your false self. Now, they are both still yourself. They are just different aspects of the spectrum of who you are. And so when you think about it that way, recognize that this is a picture of the complete whole of who you are. They are just simply two sides of who you are. You can look at it many ways: light, dark, yin, yang, masculine, feminine, right? You can look at it in infinite ways. The universe consists of these two contrasts. You must have these two contrasts in order for you to even be balanced. So now, how do you balance that? Because if you are trying to listen to your consciousness, and you are listening to your consciousness, but you are listening equally to your ego, which appears to be balanced, right? Then you are essentially not getting anywhere, because likely your consciousness is telling you to take risks, be more courageous, have more faith in your talents and your passions. Whereas your ego, on the other hand, is telling you things like, well, we're not sure. Let's wait. Let's get it perfect. Let's wait till tomorrow, right? Let's put it off. Let's practice more. Let's get more information before we take action. I'm not good enough, right? This person is better than me. All the things and the fears that come with the ego is in a way negating and pulling you back from moving forward with consciousness. So now, again, how do you bring those things into balance and understanding? Well, one is you must recognize the ego's place. The ego's place is to protect you from harm. So you have to learn how to communicate with the ego by way of the consciousness to pacify and let it know that we are mindfully taking this approach and we're going to move forward, because where we currently are in life, where you currently are in life, isn't lending to your fulfillment. And so staying still is actually causing more harm than it is to move forward. And so you have to communicate that with the aspects of yourself that is insecure, the aspects of yourself that doesn't want to move forward, right? That is your ego. And so you have to recognize that the ego is coming from a very protective point of view, a very protective nature. And when you think about it that way, it causes you to understand the ego more than to villainize the ego as if it is something that is meant to stop you and cause harm. No, it only causes you harm when you are not managing it mindfully. And so you have to put it in its place and manage it mindfully. And then the ego will, in fact, decrease in its engagement or activity, right? In its communication to you to not do particular things, especially if it is something different than what you are currently doing. Whereas on your consciousness side, you are continuously wanting to push, right? To push forward, to seek new adventures, to try new things, you are constantly being inspired, even haunted with dreams and aspirations that you just, for some reason, right? Which is the real reason is your ego, but for some reason you are not pursuing it. You are not taking the steps. You are not initiating the process. And so as you are leaning toward this consciousness mentality or nature, you are essentially tipping the scale. So usually when you think of balance, we are looking at a scale, right, that is like this. Now, this is what by definition balance is, but on the spiritual and the metaphysical point of view, true balance, if this side is consciousness and this side is ego, true balance is an imbalance of the consciousness being more than the ego, right? So in other words, if you think about it as far as percentages go, instead of it being 50-50 consciousness and ego, which often means you're not moving, means nothing is happening because you are constantly negating one another, right? The consciousness is saying do this, the ego is saying don't do it. The ego is even saying do this, coming from a place of fear, and the consciousness is saying don't do it. And so nothing is essentially happening. No movement, no momentum is beginning to build. But when you are acknowledging where your ego is and what its nature is, and you are communicating to it that, okay, yes, we are fearful, we are scared, we are insecure, but if we do nothing, we will continue to be miserable, continue to be unfulfilled, continue to be unhappy, unsatisfied. So we must move forward. And when you do that effectively, consistently, then you have a point where consciousness is now 51%, whereas the ego is 49. So now even that one little percentage, it makes a difference because now it means you are being led by consciousness. It means that now you are beginning to move forward, right? So you think about you're on this road of spirituality, this road of fulfillment. You're on this journey. Consciousness is pulling you toward the thing that you desire, where in many cases, the ego is behind you, right? It's on your back. It is essentially being weighted. It's by being the weight, the thing that is essentially keeping you from moving forward faster. And so when you communicate with ego by way of consciousness, you are essentially lighting the load. And so as you lighten that load, then you can move faster and more naturally along this path. So when you are essentially being mindful and communicating and leading with consciousness, the scale is at a point where it is in true balance by being in balance, by being to a point where consciousness is more than ego. You see, so when we think about balance, we have to change really what it is that we're talking about. So it can apply to anything in life. We often talk about things like work-life balance. Well, if you want to be a millionaire, then essentially to achieve that goal, if that is your main objective goal, to achieve that goal, which is essentially a objective, a mission, you have to prioritize. And the nature of prioritizing things means that you put certain things before others. You put your work, you put your business, you put all of that, which will equate to $1 million first. And that will essentially get you to the $1 million. Now, at a point where you do create $1 million, okay, you may want to adjust, pull it back, maybe figure out systems to make that $1 million continue to build, right? But you are constantly adjusting, and whatever your goal is, you have to recognize that in order for you to achieve that goal, you have to adjust what balance looks like for you. If you are running a marathon like I am, I have to adjust and say to myself, okay, there are a few hours in my day that I cannot just lay around or watch TV or be on social media or do anything else. If I really want to be successful in this marathon, I have to take a few hours a day to just focus on training. And that is pulling away from something else. You only have 24 hours in a day. So you have to be mindful as to what's important to you. And on this spiritual journey, your fulfillment, your happiness, your ability to tap into your essence and your true power and be your truest self is the mission. In order to do that, you have to be led by consciousness. You have to follow and listen to your intuition. You have to know that no matter what you do, as long as you are listening to your consciousness, you are in fact moving forward on this path. Now, the more you learn to trust and listen to consciousness, right? When that 51% turns into 55%, it turns into 60% consciousness being led, then it continues to compound and continues to build up this momentum of understanding as to who you are. Then things like manifestation, right? Materialization, peace of mind, attraction of your tribe of people, those things start to come into play. And then you start to truly live the life that you're meant to live, because now you are truly being the person you are meant to be, your true self. So recognize and understand that this path is recognizing that the ego, which is your false self, is that mask, is essentially needing to be pacified and managed in order for you to express and follow your consciousness, which is your true self. You begin to shed the mask or understand that the mask only serves a particular purpose, but it is not who you are. And as you do that, you begin to move forward in life in a way that is practical, but also lends and allows you to be your true self. Thank you so much. Feel free to go to drabundant.com and subscribe to my newsletter. Also, when you do so, you'll get this free ebook, The Power Within. I also want to invite you to join my Conscious Creator Circle, which will give you a whole lot of benefits and things that will help and support you to become a conscious creator and thus create the reality that you desire. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.